Things Podcast. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on all the socials at Best Things Pod as well. Now, here are your hosts, Craig and Aaron.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to the Best Things Podcast, and may the Force be with you. My name is Craig. Sitting alongside me, as always, Padawan or Jedi Master. I can't tell which one. Aaron Brooks.
Hello.
Welcome to the show, everybody. You immediately know what we're talking about today.
Some people have already tuned out.
That's true.
They heard the opening music and no thank you.
Some people are listening for this very reason. So
yes,
we're glad you're here either way. We're glad you're here if you're still here. That's right. Today we're talking about Star Wars. So we're obviously Star Wars fans. If you didn't peek around the set, if you haven't picked around the set at all, there's Star Wars stuff all through here.
We were not able to fit Chewie in.
No, we've got him though. we should have thought of that. We would have broken him at least half of his body out here. But we are. Would you call yourself a diehard when it comes to Star Wars?
I would like to think so, and then I talked to some other people that are far beyond me.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan.
Right.
I think I'm diehard. I don't know what is the next level beyond that.
I mean, are you watching everything animated? Are you there's books on it now?
So I haven't done the books. I haven't done the comics. I've played a little of the games.
Right.
I have watched some of the animated stuff.
Yeah.
So I am not to that level.
Right.
That some of my friends are that have consumed all of the content.
See, that's where I am.
I feel like that's more than Die Hard, though.
You think?
It's like obsessed.
Okay, yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch every movie. I'm gonna critique it. I'm gonna watch them multiple times. I don't know, and I don't know that I'm a diehard, to be honest with you. Some people would say maybe I'm not a casual, but I'm not going any further than what's in a theater. Does that make sense? And a Disney Plus. That's my extent.
Is it though? I feel like if you care about some of the Star Wars lore and the canon of it, that takes you beyond just being interested in watching the movie.
Okay, but I mean, it's not,
like if there are things in the films that do not sit well in your soul, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Then I think that makes you more than just a casual fan, more than just somebody who watches them for enjoyment. You have a deeper connection to the Force.
I guess so, but I mean, I guess, and maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but like I feel like there's so much more that I think somebody who really called themselves a diehard would look at me and go, "You're not a fan. You know, you're not a real fan." So I guess that's why I look at it and go, "Okay, I don't." But I mean, I grew up with this, like most people listening to this right now. I grew up with this stuff in the zeitgeist, in pop culture, in just loving the movies, and then when the series started coming out on Disney Plus, like The Mandalorian, like just enjoying those. I have not. Now, again, this is why I don't think I'm a diehard. I have not watched all the series on Disney Plus yet.
Okay, I haven't either. I pulled the plug on some of them.
Yeah,
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Again, for some of the reasons I think that we'll get into later. So no, I haven't completed all the series on Disney Plus that have come out.
So I don't know where that leaves us. I don't know if people are listening to this who are those diehard or beyond diehards, are gonna say, well, who are these guys? What qualifications do they have to talk about this?
Do you follow any Star Wars YouTube channels?
No.
Okay, I follow a couple Star Wars YouTube channels, And there are definitely people that are beyond me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've got friends, but just listening to some of those people that are really hoping for some of the deep stuff may be disappointed by what we talk about.
I would say we're average diehards.
Okay.
I mean, that's how I view myself on a lot of these spaces we talk about. I'm not an expert. I'm the jack of all trades, expert in none, kind of guy. And so I'm well versed enough to talk about it, but by no means am I going to go in deep dives and start connecting all the dots and say, well, that side character you saw for 4 seconds is really important because he connects to the comic. I'm not doing that at all. And I don't think you are either.
No.
In a lot of ways.
Probably not. I might to a little more degree than you.
Probably.
But definitely not that far.
We've wanted to talk about Star Wars for a hot minute.
Yep.
But earlier this summer, I made a conscious decision. We had some kind of conversation about Star Wars randomly. And it may have been during our sequels episode. We talked about The Empire Strikes Back. And I made a conscious decision to say, hey, you know what? I am going to take some time, whatever little time I have, and I'm going to watch the canonical movies, really just episodes 1 through 9 in canonical order, not release date order, and then refresh myself. And then about halfway through it, I text you and I said, we've got to record shortly after this because I've got thoughts. And so that's why we are where we are right now. Any other banter before we hop in, or are you ready to hop?
Yeah, I think let's just let's get into it.
Then let's do.
Before we can figure out the best thing, we have to talk about all the things. It's time for the thing about the things.
Okay, talking about Star Wars. So we had a conversation before we hit record because I needed to know from Aaron what his preference was on what angle we went on, because I could have easily, because remember, I watched these in canonical order. So I ended with Force Awakens,
Last Jedi,
Rise of Skywalker. I could have easily just gone on a 1 hour rant about the worst things about Star Wars. And we landed on, I'm going to let you set it up because I like the way you said it.
Okay, we are going to explore the light and the dark side of the entire movie franchise.
Yes.
All 9 films. We are excluding the standalone movies of Solo, Rogue One, and was there...
Those are the big two. I think there was an animated Clone Wars movie. I did not. I've never seen it. But those were the only other two standalone. There have been standalone series. I'm not including series either. We'll obviously talk about them. Rogue One was fantastic. If we just want to give them their roses real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Rogue One was brilliant.
I love Rogue One.
It was great.
Fantastic standalone film. Better than any of the most recent trilogy.
Yes.
And
which makes me mad.
I told you, the more that I have watched Solo, the more I like Solo.
Yeah.
I feel like it got some hate.
It did.
From people.
Yeah.
But the more I've watched it, I enjoy Solo. And I'll say I like it better than any of the 3. I want to see that sequel. I want to see the Solo sequel.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
Because there's a lot of story between where it left off and where
I want to know what happened.
story picked up.
I've been told that some of it gets told in some of the animated stuff that's out there. But again, I don't want to have to go dig and search for an animated episode here or there to try to figure out the rest of the story. Just go ahead and give us a full-length sequel movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're gonna incorporate these classic characters into different things, give us backstory, because I think that's one thing that the episodes 1 through 3 got a lot of hate for at the beginning, but now in retrospect, they did a great job of connecting the dots on how we got to A New Hope. So again, we're talking episodes 1 through 9. We'll touch on the others if we need to. Mandalorian was fantastic. The first few seasons were good.
Yep.
Last season kind of fell off for me a little bit.
It did.
I lost a little bit of interest along the way.
Let's see, what is it? 2025 that we get the Mandalorian movie?
I think so.
25 or 26?
So I'm hoping that's good.
I hope so.
I hope that goes back. I'm hoping Jon Favreau is like back in at the helm.
I like things that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are involved in.
Yeah.
I think those two guys do a really good job with Star Wars.
So we're gonna go through. Do we want to go canonical? So we start with episode 1.
Okay.
And we're going to talk through. So if you're a Star Wars nerd, buckle up. Let us know in the comments. Like, are we spot on? Are we off? Just let us know, because, like I said, we're not the most knowledgeable on the internet, but we're fans. We're average guy fans. So, Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace. You want to talk about it?
I'm going to let you have watched them more recently. I've watched them within the last year.
Okay.
But I'll let you kind of lead in there. And
so I'm gonna read off. I sent you a text right after I finished watching it, so I'm gonna read those thoughts verbatim. The storyline, better than I remember. They did a good job of setting up the story of the original series, leaving a little twist and cliffhanger in there. The CGI though was awful. They tried that's hold the what just talked.
my watch.
Okay. I guess it heard CGI and thought it said Siri. But yeah, I mean, you would think in the early 2000s the graphics would be great, but they went way too animated. This was in that odd period of CGI. Now looking back at it,
Yeah.
where it was a little bit of a what's that called? Uncanny Valley trying to go on, where they're trying to make it too realistic, but it's not there yet, kind of thing. And I text you that it took me out of the movie several times because it was just, even in the 1970s, that CGI felt better. The effects wasn't CGI, but the effects felt better to me than Episode 1. Jar Jar provides nothing to the story.
He is listed by so many different places as being one of the worst things about the franchise.
Awful.
That was a cash grab.
It had to be.
They wanted to sell product and merchandise
Yeah.
based on that character.
His only role was connecting them to Naboo, but they could have done that with, he could have just been there
Sure.
and been gone. There was no reason to keep him around. Kid Anakin, his acting, really bad.
So that's one of the other things that people bring up a lot.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's not very good. I'll give you that.
What's funny is, he's in Jingle All the Way. He's
Yep.
the kid in Jingle All the Way. It's the same thing. He's the same character.
Yeah.
It's just
He
not
is.
good. I'm sure he's a fine human being if he's catching this on the internet, but the acting, not great. And I'm kind of mixing the bag here. Maybe we need to go light side, dark side on each of these. But Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor were great. I thought they were the bright spot in that movie. Their acting was. Liam's character was wasted in that movie. Qui-Gon Jinn should have been.
Yeah.
I get it. Spoilers, by the way. I get he had to die, but he didn't have to, I would have loved to seen more of him. Portman was good. Sam Jackson was good. Darth Maul in it a lot less than I remember him being.
And he is one of the characters that people absolutely love.
Yeah. And there's no way to bring him back.
Very little screen time.
Very little.
The only thing,
One fighting scene.
yeah. I think you get more of him in animated stuff.
Really?
In several of the animated series, you find Darth Maul. You could do a series with him.
Yeah.
Don't we get him
Yeah, you
in
could.
Solo?
Oh, I don't remember him being in Solo.
Is he not in Solo?
If he is, I don't remember him being there.
Let me. I think that I think that a series with him, Darth Maul appears in Solo.
Okay.
A surprise cameo near the end of the movie. Yes, because he's the leader of Crimson Dawn.
Okay.
And that's where I think that the sequel of Solo would go.
Yeah.
I think that's where a live action series could go, is to following Darth Maul and Crimson Dawn. You get some of that in Rebels, I think it is.
Yeah.
The animated show. Yeah. He's in the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. Because he survived his death
Right.
in the Phantom Menace. So they left this open where you could bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, he culturally, like, I remember when the movie came out, like, Darth Maul was everywhere. Because, I mean, he was menacing. He was supposed to be the new Vader, you know, the precursor to Vader, rather.
Right.
He was the big bad, and then he was just not in it hardly. He was that little peon who just kind of said, yes, master, and just kind of went off screen. And then you get the one fight scene with him and Qui-Gon, and, I mean, that's it. You know, Obi-Wan takes him out, and it's over.
People really liked the double lightsaber.
It was cool.
That was so cool.
Yeah. Darkseid definitely has the better lightsabers.
Oh, yes.
I mean, you look at him, Kylo's little,
yeah.
you know.
Hands down, they do. But I would like to see more of him. I think he was one of the better parts of the prequel
Yeah.
and the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I think you could have kept him around a little bit longer, or at least be less Jar Jar, more Darth Maul, I think is what we're getting at. That's what we wanted out of that movie.
You know, they've gone back and made some edits and things to these films. Can we go back and edit out some of this stuff and like add some scenes in?
Get a George Lucas cut, you know? Like,
exactly.
I know he was involved with these, but I don't think he was directly involved like he was with the OG.
Right.
So this Cinema Blend article gives us the best thing and then the worst thing. They say the best thing was the introduction of Darth Maul. And so they obviously hype him up. They say the worst thing, the dark side, if you will, is Anakin and Padme's dynamic, which I'll get to that more in episode 2. I have some thoughts about that. But I do agree. Why did they have to make Anakin and Padme's age so different? Because this says Anakin is 9 years old, Padme is 14, and yet in episode 1, they're already starting to ship them. That's weird. It's weird.
So it's 5 years.
Which is not weird in the grand scheme of things, but 9 and
at
14.
9 and 14, it's
weird.
it's
You're talking at 18 years old, an 18-year-old Padme is a very different person than a 13-year-old. I mean, that's just
Anakin,
weird.
yeah.
It's just weird. Or not even that. No, he would be, yeah, that's 13.
Yeah.
My math's right. So it's just weird. It's a weird choice. To my knowledge, somebody in the comments correct me, because in my knowledge, there was no reason for either one of them to be that age. Anakin could have been 15 at that time, or Padme could have been younger. I just don't know why they made that choice. That just feels like a really weird thing to me. As always, we do still have our Taco Bell bell. So if at any point we can smash the button, add something to our bracket. This is just going to be our favorite moments maybe from Star Wars, or our favorite things about Star Wars. We're not doing a worst things bracket. We're only focused. The light side is going to win here.
Is it?
Maybe
Okay.
not. As far as the bracket's concerned, yes.
The age difference in the prequels was a deliberate choice by George Lucas.
George, you're wrong. This is one of the areas you were wrong.
So here's why the significant age gap exists.
Okay. We do need to say this is this is according to ChatGPT.
Yeah. I'm asking ChatGPT for this, so it has been known to be wrong at times. We're going to trust it on this, and if you know,
there's enough stuff on the internet, it probably is going to get this right.
So yeah, we know that it's telling us 9 and 14. By the Attack of the Clones, he's 19 and 24. Okay, that's good. The age difference helps highlight Anakin's progression from an innocent child to a passionate and troubled young adult. and the growth mirrors his transformation into Darth Vader. In contrast, Padme is already established as a responsible leader, which enhances the tension in their relationship as Anakin becomes more impulsive. And he was drawing inspiration from Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
Let's see.
The age didn't have to be that way, though.
Star Wars draws heavily from mythology and older storytelling traditions where age differences between key characters were more common, and the relationship between Anakin and Padme may have been inspired by these classical romances. And then the last reason it gives is for the thematic purposes, that the relationship was used to explore the themes of attachment, loss, and the dangers of unbalanced relationship. Their age gap, and by extension, their emotional imbalance, is symbolic of their unequal approach to love and responsibility.
Yeah, all that sounds good. It doesn't translate, though.
Yeah, I agree.
All that could have been achieved with the same age.
Sure.
Because guys do mature.
Guys
slower
are
than
more
girls.
immature than girls are at the same age.
So you could have had
typically.
even if you wanted him to be younger than her, I get that. Make him 12.
Right.
12 and 14 is way more palatable than 9 and 14. There's just no reason for that big of a gap at that young of an age.
I agree. And it definitely jars you when you...
Where's the where's the poo button? Where's it? Hold on, I gotta get to it. There it is. Wow. I gotta have that. I have a feeling I need to have that more handy.
Are you taking anything from this movie?
So I have a ranking here.
Okay, yeah, I have a ranking somewhere, and I'm trying to find it on my computer while you're.
I'm going to try to stall to let you find your ranking because as I was watching, was like, I need to start ranking these. I need to put them in a specific order. I've got a couple ties in here, and if I have to break them, I can. But I have The Phantom Menace Episode 1 tied for 7th place on. Mine goes 1 to 8 with a few ties in there, which I guess 1 to 9 with some ties. So I'm gonna put Episode 1 in the 7 spot. It's toward the end, and honestly, and I think I texted you this too. If those few not nitpicky, they're major plot holes for me personally. But if I have more of Darth Maul, less of Jar Jar, and that age gap wasn't so weird, and then the CGI was better, plot line wise, I think this could be an upper half Star Wars movie. I think it could be on the top tier.
And you're ranking it where?
I've got it 7.
7
tied
out
for
of
7.
9.
Yeah, tied for 7.
Tied for 7th.
Yeah.
Wait, why are we doing ties?
Because I could break it if I really needed to, and it would be 7th. But there were some of these that are really close. Fine, I won't do ties. I have no problem.
Let's not go soccer rules here.
Did you find yours?
I am still looking. I have so many threads with people where we discuss Star Wars. Why I have never saved these into a note, I don't know. But I'm trying to find my list.
Where would you put it off the gut since you can't find your list? I've got it at 7. 7 of 9.
I'm going to say 6 at this moment.
Okay.
6 at this moment.
Maybe you need to create a new list on paper. So moving on now, we have episode numero 2, Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones, I have it slightly better. I have it at a 6 on mine. So those are back to back. Mainly because we're starting to move in the right direction. It feels like the acting is a little bit better. And I guess we should probably give some context for each of these episodes and where the story moves to. So,
yeah.
Episode 1, we'll backtrack. Episode 1 finds Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is Qui-Gon's apprentice. They are Padme and her people are making this deal with Naboo and there's intrigue, there's diplomacy, there's all this kind of stuff, and they come across this boy named Anakin Skywalker who has no father. We need to mention that. There's a little.
That is.
You think that's a nod to biblical reference? That's what it felt like when I was watching it. He's the, I mean, Obi-Wan even says he is the chosen one.
Have you watched Dune?
I started it and gave up like within 10 minutes.
Okay.
It just dropped me in the middle. I wasn't prepared for it.
I have attempted to watch it a few times and still haven't made it through. And I have not seen the original. I have had several friends tell me I really need to watch it and I need to commit to it, and that it does get better, and that Dune Part 2 is one of the best movies
really
that has been out in a while.
Good.
But this predates Star Wars, and George Lucas mirrors a lot of what takes place, I guess, in the Dune franchise. Right. He borrowed from and used in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And just a little bit I've read and seen, I can definitely see where it feels very much like the Dune story.
So you have this boy, Anakin Skywalker. He is a slave. He is a great pilot. He is obviously very gifted in the Force. His mother senses there's something different about him. Qui-Gon says, hey, I will go train him. They work out a deal. I don't remember the guy's name, the slave owner. I don't remember that creature's name. But, if he wins this race, then he's free. And so he takes Anakin under his wing and yada, yada, yada. They've got to do all the stuff, and Darth Maul comes into the place and stuff like that. So Maul fights Qui-Gon.
Watto.
Yes. Qui-Gon dies in battle. Obi-Wan takes over and takes out Darth Maul. And so then we move forward in the story. Basically, Obi-Wan is there to be a peacekeeper, to kind of protect, and that's where we pick up in episode 2. There's now this, again, we're running right through a lot of details, but there's a clone army that starts to rise up. You have Count Dooku in episode 2. I think it's 10 years have passed at this point, if I'm not mistaken. A bunch of time has passed. So both Padme and Anakin have grown up. And this is where, again, I'm going dark side first, I guess. Anakin is creepy toward Padme during the whole movie. He's creepy.
You think?
He's very creepy. He's just like stalkerish toward Padme. Like it's, you will love me kind of. It's just it's really weird. It's really off-putting looking back at it and watching it with fresh eyes. So anyway, Cinema Blend has their light side, dark side. The best thing it says is seeing the Jedi Council in action. I do enjoy seeing this Jedi Council a lot. That adds some authenticity, some officialness to the Jedi Order, because when we pick up in A New Hope, they're kind of scattered and there's no Jedi out there. So seeing the OG Council come together, you're seeing, you've got Mace Windu, Sam Jackson's character, you've got Yoda, you've got all these different characters coming together to kind of give perspective and give advice and give direction, and that's always positive.
I feel like you have hated on this movie, though, a lot in years past.
I have.
But you said it was too much of the political stuff going on.
I did.
That was just boring.
I've come around.
And now you're kind of walking that back.
I am walking it back. Seeing it with fresh eyes, there was a lot less of the Senate hearing stuff than I remember there being. And maybe it was just me being younger, and because that came out in what year did episode 2 come out? 2003?
I was going to say 03.
Somewhere in there.
02, 03,
So,
04.
I was just a kid, I was what? I was still a teenager.
I think that it helps us to understand a little bit more about the politics of the galaxy, things that are going on.
And I think that's something as an adult I look back on. And
the older you get,
more.
you appreciate that more. And so you begin to kind of understand what's going on.
Teenage Craig wanted to see the fighting. I want to see lightsaber battles. I want to see action.
Right.
And I think that slowed down stuff just didn't appeal to me then. And so looking back on it with fresh eyes, yeah, I appreciate the diplomacy, the workings, the plot, how it weaved in and out.
And you begin to see Palpatine really kind of begin to manipulate and control and how he is working his plan. I want to stop right here and say,
please stop,
that as we mention all of these things, we are talking about them from the perspective of the light side.
Yes, that's true.
I have had some very deep conversations with some of my friends this year who have presented to me the fact that we have been predisposed to support the rebels and the light side in this as being the good guys, when maybe they really aren't the good guys, and we should be supporting Palpatine and all of these people, and they have been projected to be the bad people when they really aren't. And so there's been some very deep conversations about, okay, what if this was presented from the other perspective and from the other point of view?
Right.
And I think there's some interesting stuff that's there.
I've always loved that perspective. I mean, I know you're not a Walking Dead fan, but I've always heard that about the bad guy and Negan in Walking Dead was the same thing. Like, if you were in his shoes, you would do the same thing.
Exactly.
And so it's an intriguing premise for sure. I would love to see.
Yeah.
I would love to see we kind of do, I guess, get a Vader not a standalone, but we see his side of it a little bit.
So I started researching online, and there are a ton of articles about why the Empire was actually good. And there may be some valid things that are presented there. And I guess if you are looking at this, because this episode 2 gets into sort of the political side of it, when you are talking politics, everybody always has their perspective on things. If you are a Republican or a Democrat, you see the other side from a perspective that the other side doesn't see. And so that's where we're at this point. We're talking about things. When I watch the movies, I'm always rooting for...
You want to root for your hero.
You're rooting for the rebels here. But it's a fun conversation to have.
It is.
And to get into, okay, could there be some validity to maybe Vader wasn't as bad as what we think, or maybe Palpatine wasn't as bad as we think.
Especially, and they're blurring together since I watched them so close together, but either the end of episode 2 or the beginning of episode 3, where Palpatine is really in Anakin's ear.
Yeah.
And he is really saying, if you want to save your wife, spoiler, again, they get married secretly. If you want to save her, because he's having visions, he's having dreams that she dies in childbirth, and he's seeing all this stuff. And he says, if you want that to be prevented, or even further down the road, if you want to bring her back, then you need to come to the dark side. And so, I mean, we're both married, and I think if we had the opportunity to do some things to save our spouse, we're going to probably do those. And so, I get that angle of it easily, so it is interesting.
I'm going to read part of one of the messages that I was exchanging with a buddy about this. And he's talking about Anakin, and he says Anakin saw himself as his mother's protector, and he vowed to save her once he was old enough.
All right.
We see that in episode 1. When he failed to do that, it drove a wedge between his love for his mother, which was forbidden by the Jedi, and his allegiance to the Jedi Order.
Right.
What good is this power if he can't even save the people he loves?
Yeah.
And then here comes Padme, and he's obsessed with the belief that he could save her.
And obsessed with her.
Yes. And so the obsession, the fear, the anger, the suffering from loss is what drove him to the dark side, and Palpatine offered him one thing that he couldn't refuse, the power to save the people he loved. And again, what person's probably not going to, so when you look at that perspective...
It's you, and that's the biggest. I do appreciate that a lot about these prequels. They do a great job of saying this is why Vader became Vader.
Yes.
Spoiler alert if you don't know. Which I feel like that's pretty evident. But I know, like, my dad has never seen Star Wars, any of them.
I still
He
have
is in his 60s.
Okay.
He has never seen Star Wars.
I have friends that have not watched them either.
They got Disney Plus and has never seen Star Wars.
How has he not seen it growing up with?
Well, so he just went through his whole his life not watching, but then streaming and stuff became available, or before that DVDs and stuff, and he knew more were coming out. He's like, I'll just wait till it's over and I'll watch it all at the same time. it's just never going to end now. So we at 1 year we were going to get him the DVD box set. And I was like, good gosh, the price tag. It's like, they're all streaming now. You can watch it for yourself whenever you want to. But yeah, I mean, lots of spoilers going forward, but Anakin is Darth Vader.
And I figure probably a lot of people listening at this point are
probably know
just
that.
fans, and you already know the.
But yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that. It tells the story of how he got there, and you understand more and more why he got to that point and how he got to that point. There is some decent action in that movie. Again, CGI is still not great. It is toned down a little bit more. But, the scene with Padme, Anakin, Obi-Wan in the big pit, they all get captured because Anakin's coming to rescue, all that kind of stuff, and all the creatures that they have to get up on the rocks. And, there's some good, that's Star Warsian action sequences that are happening there. There's the scene with Count Dooku fighting Yoda.
Yes.
That's the first, this article says it, and I guess I didn't realize that, but that's the first ever Yoda lightsaber duel. Happened in that moment. And so you see Yoda doing the fighting. There's a little too many flips for me. That's all he's doing is just flipping around and bouncing. But I mean, I guess at that size, that's what you got to do. So I mean, there's good bits. There's a lot more good bits in there. I think I preferred, which is weird because that you pointed it out, because I agree. Like, I used to hate so much on the slow down parts, and now those are my favorite parts of that movie.
You get. Did you already mention Jango Fett and Boba Fett?
No.
This is where we get their introduction into the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Who, I mean, they became fan favorites.
Huge fan favorites.
People love Boba Fett, Jango Fett, and we got a Boba Fett series out of it.
It's unveiled that Jango Fett is the prototype for all the clones.
Yes.
It is based on his type, his body type, his DNA, all that kind of stuff, created all these clones. So the Clone Wars deeply entrenched in the Fett family. And that was a whole surprise too. When Obi-Wan goes to the planet and, he kind of walks in like they're expecting him, not knowing the Jedi have asked for this to happen, and it ended up, going sideways in some ways, but lots of intrigue. There's moments that it's almost like a spy drama, that's intertwined into. I've always talked about how like Captain America and the Winter Soldier has some spyness to it. This is, a version of that in Star Wars. So it's definitely got, the light side of it is way brighter than I remembered it being. But to me, it's still probably a mid-tier. I've got it at 6 on my list. I don't know where you would put it. But to me, it's still probably just a mid-level Star Wars movie. It does advance the plot, but it doesn't make any massive revelations.
6 is also where I would put it. One of the things that, and I agree with this, that a lot of the plot points can feel rushed, where it talks about Anakin and Padme falling in love, his turn to the dark. Sometimes it feels a little bit unconvincing.
Yeah.
But I would give it a slight nod over Phantom Menace.
Yeah. And if I could go back and rewrite those first 2 episodes, I would obviously have Anakin start out older. There was no reason for him to start out as young as he was for the whole movie.
Right.
Like, if you want to start out with him at that age and then advance it a few years to where he's 14 and meets Padme at 14, I totally get that. I don't mind the big 10-year time jump that he longs for her during that time. That makes sense. But it's creepy when it's the last time they saw each other, he was 9, Now, I get, a 9-year-old may have a crush on somebody older, but to be as creepy and as strong as he was coming, like, I remember watching that first 30 minutes of the movie going, dude, calm down. Like, calm down.
The more that we've talked about, the more that it's coming back to me.
It is just,
it is.
You will love me.
Like, when I ask ChatGPT about the worst things of this movie, the first thing it brings up is the awkward romantic dialogue. And it says that it's cringeworthy.
It's cringy. It's painful. There is no chemistry with them.
No. It did not feel natural.
No. And so, I mean, you would think a love that deep later on would have some chemistry and some, there's just nothing until it's almost like he has to convince her about 2/3 of the way in the movie, you do love me. It's just, I don't know. It's weird. I mean, it is what it is. So, you can take anything from this one?
I forgot that we're taking things.
I know.
Have you taken anything?
I haven't taken anything yet either.
What are we taking again? What are we
I don't
putting on
know.
the bracket?
Just the best moments. I don't, and maybe we don't need to do a bracket on this one. I don't know.
Let's see. If I was taking, whoop, I'm going the wrong direction. Here we go.
I want to take like Darth Maul in episode 1, but he wasn't in it enough. It's hard to take that. That was the best, maybe the best thing in episode 1, but so tiny of a speck in the movie.
I don't know what to take.
Yeah.
If I were going to take something here, it might be the introduction of Jango Fett and Boba Fett.
Okay. You can take that if you want to.
Part of me would also say, I would take the Palpatine aspect of it.
Yeah, we haven't touched on that a whole lot. Like,
But
you start to,
This is where you begin to really know him.
because up until this point, he's an ally to the Jedi.
Yeah.
He's on their side, but you can start to see, of course, now, what's the angle? Directorially, you're getting glimpses into his motives beyond that, and you're also seeing a little bit of distrust that Yoda and I said it earlier and I've forgotten. Sam Jackson's character.
I
I said it earlier and I've just gone blank.
I went blank as well.
Mace Windu.
Yes.
You see their distrust in Palpatine. They're worried about Anakin getting too close to him.
Yes.
And so you do see that dynamic start to form.
The seeds are planted and they are maturing.
Yeah. Okay. So if neither one of us are initially going to take anything,
No.
then we can move on to Star Wars Episode 3. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're 42 minutes in. We're on Episode 3. Don't worry. The last 3 are going to be a quick rant. Revenge of the Sith. This is hands down the best of these 3 films. And it's not close.
No. It is. I have it. Again, I'm trying to think through my rankings, and I'm still trying to find things. I feel like I said I have this ranked number 4 in my list.
I have this ranked.
And I may have it 3rd.
I have this ranked number 3.
If I can.
I have it ranked 3. It is dark and gritty. This is the one that everything feels like it has finally come together. Anakin is now fully entrenched in Vader. He absolutely is sold his soul to the dark side. He's trying to save his love. You can see the pain that Obi-Wan feels because of what happened. This is the scene with the younglings. This is where he goes full on bad guy. This is the birth of Vader. And you know what? I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the birth of Darth Vader in episode 3.
I finally found my list. Why it was not finding, I searched some of these other terms. Come on, Apple, get this together. But I did find it. This was from back in 2019. It was on my birthday in 2019. I hope that I still feel the same way. I have Revenge of the Sith number 3.
Yeah.
And you said you have it where?
I have it 3.
You have it 3 as well.
This is, especially going back and watching them all, this is one of the top tier movies. Done very well. CGI was not over the top at all. Like, I didn't get lost in it. I didn't feel like it was off-putting. The relationship between Padme and Anakin has come full circle now. It's finally developed. It is not off-putting. There's nothing initially off-putting about the movie. Anakin he's lost his mom. He's trying to save Padme from this vision that he sees. And so he's going full on bad guy. The Jedi are starting to get, they're on to Palpatine. And then you have the huge battle on Mustafar between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
That is a great scene.
Cinema Blend puts it that it is the greatest lightsaber duel in the history of Star Wars cinema. And it's hard to disagree with that. Because at this point, you're talking mid-2000s, so graphics are getting better. It's easier to do those kinds of things. And it is just a fantastic fight. The scene where Obi-Wan is saying, "You are the chosen one," and he's sitting there burning to death, just all of it comes together beautifully. And my favorite part, the lightest side of this movie, if we're going light dark, how brilliantly and seamlessly it ties into episode 4. That was filmed 30 years before.
Yes.
Beautifully done.
Absolutely. I'm going to tell you that BuzzFeed ranks this the 8th best movie
Are you
in
serious?
the franchise.
What in the world? That means they're putting new ones ahead of this.
Yes, I'm assuming that's what it means. I think they're also including probably the, as I saw they had Solo
Okay.
ranked in here behind this.
I don't know that I would.
And
put Solo.
they said this entry will probably get the most hate. My buddy Luke, that I've talked so much back and forth with about this, he has it as the second best movie of the franchise. He absolutely loves this one. This is Erica's first or second favorite movie
Really?
of the franchise. She really likes the story between Padme and Anakin,
Yeah.
and this is
The best
probably
version
her
of it.
favorite.
Yeah.
They said, that Lucas admits he cheated in making this episode, saying that there is a lot of they fight in the script. That said, Revenge has the best performances of the prequel.
Mm-hmm.
So they agree with that. Episode 3 had the easiest path to finish the story, but it still managed to stumble into the lava of Mustafar.
Oh, I disagree with that.
I do too.
I mean, you've got how Palpatine looks the way he does is in that movie. You have at the very end of that movie, Luke and Leia are born, and how they tied that together. I mean, just the fact that they made sure to say, "Hey, we're going to split them up. This is why we're splitting them up. This is how it's happening. This is how Luke gets here. This is how Leia gets here." They led to that well. The fact that Obi-Wan goes with Luke to Tatooine and becomes a hermit, says, "I will just watch him from afar," ties into episode 4. Everything ties so seamlessly. They did a great, I mean, like I said, it was the easiest path. They had the easiest job in that movie because they already had source material for a sequel. And I wonder if they wrote it backwards. I wonder if they wrote episode 3 first.
Rotten Tomatoes.
I'm going to be mad.
And again, I take a lot of issue with them because these are the critics that we're going to look at here, but they rank it 7th in the list.
Man, this is so wild to me.
They gave it a 79%.
Is there anything from this film that you want to take? While you're thinking, I just want to... Cinema Blend on their worst thing says it's the slaughter of the younglings is the worst thing. I mean, I get why you don't like it, but also that's part of the birth of Vader. Like, he is so filled by the dark side and rage that he's doing the unthinkable things. His whole purpose, what is it? Order 66 is to take out the Jedi.
And that's why this list ranks it as one of the best things of the movie.
Yeah.
Because this moment is one of the most emotional, but it's going to be one of the most impactful of the entire Star Wars universe.
You're securing the future of the dark side by eliminating the future of the light. So you have to do this. There's no way around that plot. You have to do it. So I don't think you can take umbrage with it. You can not like that it was mentioned, but it kind of had to be.
And what did you take from this?
I took just the birth of Vader. I mean, nothing specific, but the birth of Vader. I could easily, and I'm tempted to also take this battle on Mustafar because it was so good. And I'm tempted to also just, package it as how well it tied into episode
The whole
4.
I have the high ground,
Yeah. Yeah, so good.
is wonderful. And then, I mean, when you get that final scene where, it's just.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah.
And something else that we haven't mentioned, they mentioned the score.
Yes.
John Williams and the
my
music of Star Wars. It's phenomenal.
It's so good.
It's phenomenal. I would take then. I'm going to take Order 66.
Okay. Killing Jedis.
And again, this is an interesting thing to talk about from the opposite perspective. Maybe someday we need to do an episode where we approach this from the other side. But Order 66 is such impactful to the entire Star Wars universe that I think it has to be one of the
I agree.
the driving things that we have in our list.
Where do you want it? 1, 2, 3, or 4.
I'm going to put it number 2.
Okay.
It could be number 1 in some ways.
So that ties seamlessly into Star Wars Episode 4, which is the first one made.
The beginning.
This is the beginning.
This is what started it all.
I've heard mixed that Lucas wrote 4 knowing there would be prequels, and I can't remember if at the title screen it says Episode 4. I don't remember. I'm sure it does now, but I don't know about back then. We don't have to go into a whole lot of details about this. Everybody knows the plot of this. Luke is living with his aunt and uncle, like Spider-Man, and they end up buying these 2 droids, C-3PO and R2-D2, and or just R2, right? And there's a message from Leia on there that says, help us, Obi-Wan, you're our only hope. Basically, R2 is on a mission to find Obi-Wan, who's a hermit, living out. Everybody knows him as old Ben Kenobi.
Old Ben.
Which is interesting, given that, Leia has a son later on named Ben.
Yep.
I've never put the 2 and 2 together until I recently just watched them. I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I bet that's why.
That was...
And so the only real negative I have about A New Hope, the only dark side moment I have, other than the dark side, is how easily Luke and Leia how quickly and easily they get over their whole lives being destroyed.
It's pretty fast.
I mean, Luke's like, oh, they all died. I'm going with you now. Leia's like, oh, my whole planet just got destroyed. Let's go. It's just, there's no grieving moment. There's no it's just so fast. Just a quick turn. That's the only thing that just kind of gets me. It's comical at this point. Because, I mean, you got to remember, when they made this movie, Lucas was not expecting much out of this.
No.
He did not think it would turn into what it turned into.
Didn't have any idea where this would go.
No expectations. But yeah, A New Hope. So Luke finds Obi-Wan, realizes he's strong in the Force, and then they begin. The whole purpose, Vader has now risen up, Palpatine, everything. They've created this Death Star to take out planets. The plot of A New Hope is really very simple.
It is.
It is just good versus evil. They want to destroy planets. We're going to rebel and try to take out this Death Star thing.
Yeah.
Luke
I have it ranked number 4.
You have it 4. I have it number 2.
Really?
I have it number 2.
Wow.
And probably some of it is just, it's probably the one I've seen the most. It's when outside of Empire, which we'll talk about briefly, but this is what I think of when I think of Star Wars. So, it's probably just a more nostalgia. This Cinnamon Blend article says the best thing is Luke's destruction of the Death Star. I mean, this is an all-time blockbuster cinematic moment. Luke uses the Force, gets that beam in the right spot, takes the Death Star out. Low odds, high reward, highlight of the franchise. This says Han stepping on Jabba's tail. Meh. That's nitpicky, I guess.
Let's see.
That was a moment you could have stolen something. Apparently the Force does not want me to pick first, so go ahead.
I'm going to take Han Solo.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's a good pick.
I want Han Solo.
At?
Number 4.
Okay. I'll put your order 66 at 4. You said 2 on that one, didn't you?
And this is, let's see, I'm trying to remember. This is the one where we get the duel there at the cantina, right?
I believe so. Yes.
The McClunky.
Yeah.
And
Han is fantastic.
there's a big debate over who shot first. And apparently it has been changed in film.
Really?
Lucas, hang on. I think this is important to talk about.
This is important to talk about.
Hang on.
If you don't know, I mean, I keep saying if you don't know, you're listening 55 minutes into a Star Wars podcast. You know all this stuff, so we don't have to explain anything.
So between Han Solo and Greedo, the theatrical release, Han Solo shoots Greedo first during their meeting there at the Mos Eisley Cantina. And that is what was to establish Han as this sort of morally ambiguous character, right? I
don't give a toot.
In the 1997 re-release, he made changes to the scene, so then Greedo shot first, missing Han. One thing that bugs me about Star Wars is how bad they are at shooting people with their blasters. They are terrible.
Now, I saw something about the stormtroopers specifically.
Yes.
How they said, look, this is the perspective stormtroopers see in their mask and their helmet. And it was like this really tiny little field of view. And like that's why they shoot so poorly. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, except everything else they can do.
They should be bad at seeing like they're not running into things.
I know.
They should be terrible. So all the bad guys are terrible at shooting in Star Wars. It's
so
completely
bad.
unrealistic. So anyway, they change it. Greedo shoots Han first, and Han shoots in retaliation. And so it sparked debate and backlash because they say, you know what, that really softens Han's character too much.
Yeah.
Because now he's not this, morally bad guy.
The whole thing was that Han was not quite an anti-hero, but he was very rough around the edges. I mean, he was a smuggler, for goodness sake. He was a smuggler doing his own thing, didn't care who he made mad. He was constantly running, and I mean, that's who Han was. That's what made him so great.
So the scene was tweaked again in the 2004 DVD edition, and then it was tweaked again in the 2011 Blu-ray edition. There have been 4 different edits to this scene.
George, quit tweaking the thing.
I don't know. He can't make up his mind. Who shot first? And so it's like this. That's like the biggest debate in Star Wars history is, okay, who shot first? Han or Greedo?
I'm going to take the Death Star blowing up. Luke blowing up the Death Star at number 4. The death of the Death Star.
The death of the Death Star.
Okay, then we move on to Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. I think we both have this number 1. I know I have it number 1.
Let me get back
This
to
is
my
the best Star
list.
When I think Star Wars,
Empire Strikes Back is number 1
to me,
on
it's
my
a
list.
clear cut number 1.
All of my friends that I know have it number 1.
I mean, to me, there's no debate here, right?
Even BuzzFeed,
Yeah,
who was so
everybody's got
wrong
this.
on Sith, they're right on this one.
The fact that you get the reveal that Luke is Darth's son, Darth Vader's son, just big twist, especially in the moment before you knew it was happening. Like, who would have thought that? Plus, you've got you got Hoth, you've got just so many other areas. I mean, I could sit here and talk for an hour about Episode 5. 5. We have talked about it a lot. It has won our bracket twice. It won.
Yes.
I mean, so there's not a lot that we haven't already said, but it's really good. Cinema Blend here has the best thing is Vader's reveal to Luke, and the worst thing being Leia kissing Luke on the lips.
A very awkward moment.
Very awkward, but it's not a big deal. Like, I mean,
No.
again, she was doing that to just kind of prove a point. Like,
Yes.
she was trying to get back at Han a little bit. That was not a romantic kiss. It would be one thing if that was a romantic kiss, like I'm falling in love with you. It was more about just, hey, Han, watch this kind of thing.
The ice planet, the uniforms that they wore, I loved everything about this movie.
Everything was great.
The cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
I mean, you get Han frozen there
Frozen
in
the carbonite.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Which, I mean, I guess
Yoda's introduced in this movie.
that's true.
You don't get Yoda in the first one.
Reintroduced. I mean, to the world, this was his
Yes.
introduction.
Yes, but-
canonically, he was already there.
Yeah.
But again, that shows the importance. In back to episode 3, they show Yoda going off. Like, he's
Yeah.
injured, he's hurt, and so he's crawling off to try to save himself, go somewhere, hide out, exile himself so he doesn't get killed by Order 66.
But this is where you get him saying, "Do or do not. There is no try."
There is no try.
We meet that guy, Jabba the Hutt.
We do meet Jabba, yeah. So, I'm trying to decide what. Duh. Number 1, Luke, I am your father.
Yeah, that is the moment.
The only negative that they're building a second Death Star. That's the only negative I have. Why are we doing the same thing over again? And I'll really get into that when we get into the later episodes.
It does frustrate me.
So I'm like, okay, what's the whole purpose in that? But I mean, I guess I get it. Like, if your biggest thing gets taken out, let's build it again. You know, I guess it makes a little bit of a sense. You want to take anything from episode 4 or 5? Empire Striketh Back.
What would I take from this? It's let's see. You get more romance in this movie.
You do.
You get Han and Leia now. Who was the better couple, Han and Leia?
Or Han and Luke.
That is a different movie.
C-3PO and R2. That's a little bromance going on.
The better couple, Han and Leia, Anakin and Padme.
Oh, it's Han and Leia, hands down.
You think? I don't know what I would want to take from this. I'll have to keep thinking.
Okay. I'm trying to look here because I feel like there's so much that goes on in Empire that it's hard to remember everything. I mean, it starts off and you can tell obviously they have gotten a little bit more budget in that second one, just because the success of the first one. You've got the AT-ATs on Hoth. That's a great scene.
Those walkers.
That's an iconic
Those
scene.
things are so cool.
So great.
I remember playing the N64 game with those in it.
Yeah.
And I loved fighting those things.
The Falcon flying through the asteroid field is a great scene. There's just so many good moments of that movie.
I forgot about this. Right before Han gets frozen in the carbonite, Leia finally tells him, "I love you." And his response was, I know. That was so. Han Solo is such a cool dude.
He is, man.
And Harrison Ford is such a cool dude.
I think you're doing him a disservice at number 4.
I think I am too.
I think he's at least a 3.
Yeah, go ahead and move him to 3. Go ahead and move him to 2.
Okay. Where do you want to order 66 then?
I'm going to move it to number 1 for now.
Okay.
Just because it is so consequential
Okay.
to the franchise. And I'm not sure what else I want to take. 'Cause we're only putting good things on this list,
We're
right?
only putting good things.
We're only putting good things on this list.
Only the good. Okay, let's move on then to episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Leia in the bikini. I'm kidding.
We do get that though.
You know what's funny is rewatching it. I was like, oh wow, they really went for it. Like
They did.
I forgot. Like in my mind, I was like, it's not as graphics the wrong word, but not nearly as
Risque.
much risk. Yeah, as what we would do today. And I'm looking at it going, yeah, it is. Like I don't know that Disney's doing that.
Right. Let's see. We're Return of the Jedi. I have this ranked number 2.
I have
it?
at 4.
Whoa. Okay. So we're a little off here.
Yeah, I think between the two of us, I have New Hope and Jedi flipped.
Okay. Yep. That would be it.
It opens up at Jabba's place. It is a really cool set. Jabba's lair, I guess, is the best way to put it. There's a half an hour in his palace, the opening sequence. But there is a lot going on. You got that big monster. You have Luke coming in to save the day. You have Leia in the bikini. Did I mention that yet? And you've got them freeing Han. They release him. You get to see him come back and how discombobulated he is. This article says the worst thing is the Ewoks.
So I know a lot of people don't like the Ewoks.
I'm not mad at them. I mean, I'm a little bit indifferent, I guess.
That's how I am. I think people think that it's a little too much of like a teddy bear.
Well, and
vibe.
I think that is like they're obviously they're a society there living on this planet, and I think they are the better version. They're what Jar Jar was trying to be. I think they were trying to appeal maybe to a little bit of a younger audience.
Yeah.
They were trying to sell some merch because they had toy rights at this point, and so they're thinking if we can make some plushies out
Absolutely.
of the Ewoks, let's make the money.
I think a lot of people, one of the gripes that I've heard from people is they didn't like how Boba was killed off in this.
Right.
And that he just falls into this pit.
Yeah.
Now, we get the Boba Fett series and we learn a little bit more about what happened.
Have not seen it yet.
Oh, have you not?
I have
Okay.
not
Well,
seen it yet.
I won't spoil it. But anyway, we learn a little bit more about the Sarlacc. But people liked Boba Fett.
Yeah.
And to just kind of kill him off that way, I think
Yeah.
people weren't crazy about.
This one does put a nice bow on things. I think the Skywalker saga could have ended here. It probably should have ended here.
You find out that, or it's revealed that Leia is Luke's sister
Right.
in this film.
That's an underlying thing. The whole Luke knows before Leia, but Leia always kind of sensed it. Is kind of the vibe that we get from that. There's a lot of other, just kind of loose ends that are tied. This is where, Leia and Han kind of solidify their relationship. Leia kills Jabba.
And Vader redeems himself.
He does. Yeah.
And I've heard some people think that it felt like too much of a quick transition, that you go from being this bad guy to suddenly.
I get that.
So do you think that that's fair? Is that a fair criticism of it?
I do, but I mean, again, if
How else do you do this?
If Lucas's plan was to end the series there,
If this is all that we're getting of the story,
yeah,
it has to end that way.
it does. I think had he realized that this would continue and be bigger than that, he probably would have left it and maybe had a better story arc for Vader down the road.
So that's what I want to say is, if I were doing a worse thing, I'm going to gripe at George Lucas for not having the foresight to see that this was going to go and saving us the tragedy of the story arc of the final trilogy.
Yeah. Because are we ready to go there? I don't know. You've got 2 things left. I've got 1 thing left.
It's going to be hard for me to find anything good in these last 2 films, so I'm going to.
You mean last 3?
Yeah.
Or do you not consider the last one a film?
I'm erasing one from my memory.
That's where we're going.
So I'll just have to think, because I'll come back.
I'm going to go ahead.
Something.
I'm going to go ahead because I know I'm not going to have anything. I'm going to go ahead and fill mine out by saying Vader's redemption.
Okay.
because I'm just not going to have anything in these final three. But I agree. I think that I wish Lucas would have had the foresight to go, maybe there's more we could pull from this story. Because it is a faster. I'm not mad at him for doing it. I wish he would have, though.
Or should the story have just ended here? Should we have just said, you know what, that was good, let's move on to something else?
Exactly.
Let's
This
find
should
a
have been the
different story.
end of Luke and Leia.
The Skywalker saga should have
everybody
ended after
associated
6.
with it. Absolutely. If you want to bring back, a droid or something, have some kind of loose connection to it, maybe that's okay. But honestly, I would have loved to, like Rogue One, that kind of connection. Mandalorian, those types of connections is what I wanted to see from Star Wars moving forward. And we haven't talked about Rey yet, but they're moving forward with her. She's getting at least one more movie.
Yeah.
It was announced. And so that makes me mad because I thought for surely at the end of that 9th one, they're finally done. And she even said so herself. She expected it to be done. She did not expect to come back. And Disney doing Disney things said, no, we're not done milking this cow yet. So we move on. We move on from Star Wars Episode 6 to Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Exactly. I was going to do something else sarcastic there, but I'm glad it didn't work because I've got thoughts. And I know you do too. I'm going to let you start with thoughts.
So this is where the franchise went off the rails.
Yeah.
Let me come back to my.
Now I will say this as you're working there. I have Force Awakens at number 5. It is the best of this trilogy, this final 3.
It does not get better.
It does not get better. It is the best one. The pros for it are, I do think acting is done well. The graphics are incredible. They have obviously we're in the 2010s, and so graphics are incredible. They do bring back some beloved characters in decent ways. But I have other thoughts. Those are the biggest pros. If you're looking at it as a standalone film, if you don't care about the lore, if you don't care about the history, if nothing else matters to you and you're just watching this for what it is in 20, whatever year it came out, 20, probably 18, 17?
16.
16. If you're just watching, if you're just coming in, hey, I've heard about Star Wars and just watching it makes total sense. Great movie. But if you followed this since you were a kid, then you've got a lot of beefs here. Cinema Blend says the best thing was the fresh cast of characters. The worst thing was it feels like a reskinned version of A New Hope. And I would agree with that. The problem for me is,
Okay.
Episode 3 did such a great job setting up 4. Episode 7, A New Hope, feels like it does not connect to Episode 6 in any way.
I have this one ranked. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so you got it one less than I do.
Now, I have in this one, and again, this was before Rise of Skywalker came out, and I had Phantom Menace ranked second to last.
Okay.
I think I have moved Phantom Menace up in today's rankings. And I'm having to jump back and forth between text messages to find.
Here was my, because right after, as soon as I watched it, I text you, and this is what I said verbatim. Definitely not as good as I remember it being. Didn't necessarily have a problem with the movie. The acting was great. Casting was good. I do agree with that. The FX were fantastic. The timing, everything was excellent. The film itself was excellent. But after going back and watching 6 movies leading up to it, it's very it has very sloppy and loose connections to the original. And I just mentioned 3 and 4 tie seamlessly. There's a big gap between 5 and 6, or 6 and 7. These are my bullet points. I don't think it's very believable that Luke just abandons everybody and hides out just because he got in his feelings. All right. Also, another Death Star. We've destroyed 2 Death Stars, and they're going to build basically a third. I don't think they call it a Death Star, but they're building something identical to that, a planet killer. I can see where they were going with Leia and Han splitting up if their sun went super dark, but it feels like a stretch. Why did Han go back to smuggling? That part makes no sense to me. Why did Han go back to smuggling? He was a captain. He was a high-ranking official in this new rebel. Why in the world is he going back to smuggling? Just ditches everything and goes back to that. Why is there still chaos in the galaxy within the Republic? Trying to restore order. That was a big thing to me. At the end of at the end of Last Jedi, order has seemingly been restored. The Empire has fallen. People are cheering. Every planet is happy. What happens? Like, why is there chaos again? I have a big problem with that. My thought was, if anything, this should be how the First Order, it's a reverse. Whereas before the Jedis are trying to restore, this should be the First Order trying to claw back up. That would have been a better plot for me. And then Luke and Rey, the final scene there when she finally finds him, just holding out the lightsaber, it's weird. The dynamic there was weird. It's off-putting.
Everything about The Force Awakens to me feels forced.
Yeah.
Everything about the final trilogy feels forced.
Yeah. We've said it before. Disney was giving us what they thought fans wanted instead of what we actually wanted.
And I was halfway listening to part of everything that you said there while I was trying to find mine. And I think you mentioned the fact that it just feels like it's a rehashed, already told story that we've seen. And they did this with each of the films.
Yeah.
They're basically remakes.
Right.
Is what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's a travesty what they did.
There's nothing redeeming for me when I look at this. And it only gets worse.
Yeah, it only gets worse.
That's the hard part.
Like,
it only gets worse.
This one raises some questions. And what I told somebody back in 2019 is the next movie. I don't know. Do you have any more to say about The Force Awakens?
The only other thing is the one silver lining. I do like the new characters. I wish they weren't tied to the Skywalker saga. I like that we see a ex-stormtrooper. I think that's neat. I think it's a neat perspective.
Okay.
Everything else I don't like.
I told somebody in 2018 after rewatching the movie that, well, let me just move on to The Last Jedi. I don't think, this is what I said in 2019, I don't think The Last Jedi built on anything or answered any questions from The Force Awakens. Why are we supposed to care about Snoke?
Right.
They introduced this new character
Just
to us
out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Who?
Again, why do we care about this guy?
Yeah.
He's this big bad. He's this new evil person, this force, this whatever he is that we are supposed to... I don't have any feelings invested in this guy.
Nothing.
I know why I don't like Palpatine. I know why I didn't like Vader. I know why I had these problems with Count Dooku or whoever these people were. Snoke?
Yeah.
You just bring him in, and now I hate him? I have no history with this guy. And I'm sorry, Kylo Ren is the worst villain of all time.
Scrap that. He is the worst Star Wars character. No offense to Adam Driver. I've seen him in other things. He's great.
He's a great actor.
This is a travesty of a character, though. Whiny.
He is the whiniest villain. Like, the reason I hate him is not because he's bad. It's just because he is whiny. He's an entitled brat.
He's an entitled emo.
He cannot. Like Vader, you feared Vader.
You did, yeah.
I don't fear Kylo Ren. Like, he's in here smashing things and breaking things when he gets. Vader was going to kill somebody.
I just thought, this is the best analogy I've ever come up with.
Okay.
Kylo Ren is to LeBron James that Vader was to Michael Jordan. Kylo gets touched. Oh, no, foul. You know, he just whines about it.
There were,
People feared Vader. People feared Jordan. That's the best analogy I will ever come up with. You're welcome, Internet. Congrats. You can feel free to use it. Anybody can use it. It's free. You can, donate if you'd like to do that. But
it was like in The Last Jedi that this is when they really decided, you know what, let's just kind of forget about everything that has ever happened in Star Wars. And who cares about it? Let's just start doing stuff.
Yeah. This says that the worst thing of this was the Canto Bight story, where Finn and Rose go on this overly long and unnecessary, pointless mission. Had provided zero.
There was you could have cut that out of the film. It never would have been missed.
Wouldn't have touched anything.
One of the things I mentioned was Rey ends up beating Kylo in a fight.
Yeah.
When she has never trained.
Right.
This is one of my issues with Rey as a character.
Right.
Luke spent X amount of time training to become all of the things he became. Rey just suddenly becomes.
And is supposedly now the greatest ever because she can do things that nobody else has been able to do.
We've got now Force Touch or Force.
That's an Apple product feature.
Force.
They can see each other now from galaxies away.
Yes.
They can interact. I mean, what in the world? Like
where did
she
this
can heal
come from?
people?
Yes, Force healing.
All this stuff that they just like, this would be cool, and just give it to somebody who.
And then Snoke gets defeated as like this supreme powerful being in the Force, but he doesn't even see what's going on with Kylo Ren.
Right.
Like, every part of this is just disjointed and
That's a great word.
It's a shamble. It is a train wreck.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
It's bad.
And I'm sorry, the death of Leia was dumb in this.
Yeah. They did a disservice.
And it's basically a remake of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
That's what this is, much worse.
Yeah, much worse. They're trying to make a remake of Empire Strikes Back. We didn't even mention in the first, in Force Awakens, Han Solo's death. It's revealed Kylo is the son of Han and Leia, and Han thinks he can turn him, get him back to the light.
Yes.
And Kylo says, "I don't know that I have the strength." Again, he's an emo teenager. I don't know that I can do this.
Yeah.
And then he just kills him.
I don't know where, because I'm looking over multiple years of text messages that I'm searching through, but I've brought that up to multiple people. Like, just. Oh, it frustrates me. Well, here's one of the things I mentioned. Rose crashing Finn as he tries to save the Resistance, but she does it to save him. But when you watch the crash, that would have killed him.
Yeah.
There's no way he's surviving that. Both of them should have died in it.
Right.
It's just.
Rose is also a terrible character. I wanted to like her when I first saw.
Yeah.
And the more I watched it, the more I just didn't enjoy her. I remember in theaters going, "Oh, okay, this is a cool new character." And then rewatching, I'm like, this is awful. Like, why is she on the screen?
The reason The Force Awakens feels like it's not so bad, when you first saw The Force Awakens, I wasn't crazy about it. But after you watch The Last Jedi and then Rise of Skywalker, the only thing that redeems The Force Awakens is the fact that it is such an inexcusable disaster.
Yeah.
To how bad Rian Johnson screwed up The Last Jedi. The amount of contempt that I have for Rian Johnson and what he did to the Star Wars franchise is just, it's unfathomable.
Well, then you get to Rise of Skywalker, which I have last place.
Yeah, I haven't done an updated rankings since this one came out, but it's ninth.
It is dead last for me. This is by far the worst thing I have seen Star Wars put out. I have not seen Acolyte yet. So hold my breath on that one.
On August 19th of 2024, you text me, if you ever hear me defend Rise of Skywalker, you have my permission to take my phone and break it in half.
I stand by that. And you're not going to hear me defend it on this podcast. It was awful. Here's the problem. Cinema Blend says the best thing was the reveal that Rey was a Palpatine. I don't mind that she is part of that bloodline. I think that's a decent plot. There was no need to bring Palpatine back, though. Why did we do out of nowhere Palpatine's back in the picture again? Are you serious? We're just raising people from the dead? Apparently he was never dead. That's the lore.
I am trying to find, I had it pulled up earlier. I've got to find this. I want to read my discussion with some people from that point. I don't, man, Palpatine.
My biggest complaint with Rise of Skywalker, it felt like, this was Rian Johnson, right? Also, or was this somebody else? Whoever it was.
This was wasn't it J.J. Abrams?
Was this Abrams? Whoever it was.
This one was supposed to redeem what had happened in the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. They were going to try to bring this back and do one big service for the fans.
This was, it felt like it was written by somebody who had not watched the other ones in a while or ever. And they were getting notes from people. This felt this one felt more disjointed than The Last Jedi did. And it felt like we're just going to add in some elements from all these other ones. You've got Kylo, again, they're copy and pasting. This is Return all over again because Kylo gets redeemed in this one and is fighting right alongside Rey. And again, she heals him. No, he heals her.
Yes.
No, she heals him first earlier on. Then
Yes.
he heals her and dies.
In the big battle.
Yeah. They fight Palpatine. The worst line of all is, I am all the Sith. And then she goes, and I am all the Jedi. Girl, you have not even gone through proper Jedi training. You started the process. Leia was teaching you, and you had to abandon it halfway through. I want to like Rey a lot. I want to like that character. I have no problem with this girl being the new hero. I don't like how they kept trying to make these loose connections to the original series. It made no sense to me. Loose connections. They didn't continue the story on. They tried to reboot a story, make a whole new story, and just tie strings to the old one. It wasn't fluid.
Oh, I forgot to mention one thing about the Last Jedi that I really hate. This is one of the things, as I'm finding my threads here. What they did to Luke.
Yes.
What they did to Luke.
Yes.
That is unforgivable to the franchise.
Yes.
You do not do Luke Skywalker, the guy who built the franchise.
Do you realize, think back to the whole franchise. We never got to see a great master Jedi Luke Skywalker. The only time we did was in that one scene in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Where you saw him just be a bad A and just kind of go through
Yeah.
there and rip people apart and just kind of hello.
Yeah.
We never get to see a real powerful Luke Skywalker, which is a travesty to the franchise.
That episode had to fix everything that this trilogy did to Luke.
Yeah.
That is what that scene was about.
Yeah.
And fans went nuts when they
Loved
did
it. Oh my gosh.
Because that's what we wanted.
I just watched some fan reactions to that scene on TikTok. People losing their minds.
Yes. They turned Luke into Kylo Ren, this whiny crybaby that he gives up on everybody and he just goes and sits on top of a mountain.
hides
That's
away.
it. And then he's going to take his lightsaber and he's just going to chunk it off into the...
Yeah.
No, Luke's not doing that.
Yeah.
That is not Luke Skywalker. So I ran across that in my thread. I was like, I don't know how we forgot to talk about that.
The only redeeming part to Luke's story in this new trilogy was his ending. I appreciate how he ended. That's an ending that is worthy of Luke Skywalker in some ways, because he uses his Force presence, just to kind of make himself visible, sacrificing himself for the best. That is what a Jedi would do.
And then this is where I was trying to get to some of my stuff about Palpatine being alive somehow. Like, how are we supposed to believe this?
I don't know.
How does this happen?
I don't know.
I told one of my friends, all of this should just be erased from the canon. And he said, one of the other things that bothers me, I love this. He said how Rey and Kylo decide to sex away their differences and kill her dad. He also killed his dad. Like, they kill their parents because now they want to do each other. I thought that's fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a weird. I'm thinking the whole time I'm watching it, are you brother and sister too? Like, are you really going to do a Luke and Leia situation? Because that's the only thing that can make sense how they're communicating to each other. And then you find out, no, they're just, kindred spirits.
The truth is, Disney killed Star Wars.
Disney killed Star Wars.
And my buddy Luke, he said, I don't even acknowledge the last three as canon. I prefer to imagine The Mandalorian as the rightful sequel. It took Dave Filoni. It took I just went blank.
Jon Favreau
to save Star Wars.
Yeah.
And still, some of the other franchises, some of the other series they're bringing out for the franchise, they're still trying to kill Star Wars.
They are. I've heard good things about Obi-Wan. I've heard a little bit,
Andor is really good.
I've heard Andor is great. I've heard Acolyte is awful. I've heard some people say
I watched one episode of it
better, but they're not renewing it for another season, so that tells you everything you need to know.
Let's see. I'm trying to find where...
You still got 2 spots left, by the way.
What I will say, if I had to find something good from The Rise of Skywalker, I do enjoy the scene where the Death Star is in the ocean.
Yeah.
That is a very cool scene.
Very cool.
Watching Rey and Kylo Ren fight.
And see, that's what, if you're going to connect to the old story, those are the ways I want to see it, especially as far into the, decades into the future that you are. That's how I want to see it connected. Show ruins and remnants of the past. You don't have to keep just hammering away at the same story.
And then answer, who is Rey's parents?
Yeah.
Who is her dad?
I have no idea.
How are they connected to Palpatine?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And if she kills Palpatine, let's see. I'm trying to read through what I'm saying. So I was ranting here. And how if she kills Palpatine, she takes over as a Sith leader, but then she still kills him.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the whole point. Palpatine is like, if you will kill me,
yes,
it will prove that you have the Sith in you, you have hate in your heart.
Yes.
And by killing me, you will inherit all the Sith and become the Sith Lord. She rejects that. Cool. But 5 minutes later, she literally kills him.
Kylo magically comes back.
Yeah.
Force heals her.
Yeah.
They make out. So weird. And then dies.
Disappears as a Jedi.
Yes.
Keep that in mind. Only Jedi are doing that.
But Rey doesn't become the leader of the Sith and suddenly says, I'm a Skywalker.
Right. It's self-proclaimed. I don't care if Leia was your mentor. You just told everybody, hey, I'm a Skywalker now. That's like me walking around, hey, guess what? I'm a Walton. Give me the money. Like, how are you?
My buddy Luke, he said, I don't think they really tried. They knew it would make money no matter what.
That's a good point.
They couldn't make everyone happy, so they threw together the best plot twist they could come up with and disregarded the previous 8 movies.
Again, they could have made her a Palpatine. I have no problem with her becoming a Palpatine. Don't bring Palpatine back. That was so implausible, had no point in being there. Let the reveal come from someone else. Anyway,
when I look back at our original review of the movie, when Luke and I were talking, he said it created a lot of out of thin air, a lot of questions. It answered none of them. Like, how did this happen? How is this possible?
Yeah.
They don't give you the answers to any of those things. Every scene, every twist, everything to do with Palpatine was just made up.
yeah. I'm at rest with it now. I've said my piece. I've had my definitive ranking.
And here's how he finished. He said, I don't want to seem like a pessimist, but I really think The Last Jedi was a more faithful sequel to the franchise than Rise of Skywalker. The storytelling wasn't as epic, but you could make sense out of parts of it.
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker. Okay, yeah, this is it. He says, Rise of Skywalker makes absolutely no sense. I feel like I owe Rian Johnson an apology after how bad this one is. This one had to be J.J. Abrams.
I guess so, yeah.
He was crucified by fans, and I'm not sure he deserves it anymore after watching Rise of Skywalker.
Wasn't good, y'all. All right, Aaron. You got 3 and 4. You can just put Luke and Leia if you want. C-3PO?
Let's do Luke Skywalker. He's got to be on the list.
It's true.
And let's move Order 66 down.
Okay. You put Luke 1?
I think we should put Luke 1. Yeah. J.J. Abrams did The Force Awakens and he did Rise of Skywalker. People hated Force Awakens. Like, okay, let's bring in Rian Johnson. He screwed things up so bad. They're like, okay, that was terrible. Let's bring Abrams back. And he was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do here.
Where do you want to order 66? At 3?
I guess let's go 3 with it. And
In 4th place?
I want lightsaber battles.
Oh, that's a good call.
I want lightsaber battles.
At 4?
No. I want them at 3, and I want Order 66 at 4.
Order 66.
It's going to go from first all the way down. I told you, I didn't know where it was going to end up. I feel like it deserves to be in this list, though, because it's so monumental in the scheme of things.
Okay. We have, oh my goodness, our bracket somehow. Any final words on?
It sounds like I hate things. I think that's because of how much I loved the movies, and I loved the franchise, and I love the idea that what they did to the final 3 films screwed it up so much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get mad.
We just end on a sour note.
A lot of
because they
times
did.
I will watch the first 6 films, and I told one of my buddies this earlier this year, because that's what I did. I rewatched the whole thing. And I said, from now on, I'm watching 6 films and I'm stopping.
Yeah.
The saga is going to stop in my mind right there.
Do you think future generations will appreciate the new 3? Like we had to age with episodes 1, 2, and 3?
I don't know. I was raised to hate Texas football.
You still hate Texas football.
And I still, just Texas in all sports.
Yeah.
I intend to pass this hatred
Okay.
of Texas sports and the new Star Wars trilogy down to my son.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's never going to be any answers to these questions.
No, there's not.
Unless they're going to go back and somehow fix. I mean, I don't know how you fix. I would just rather just scrap the whole thing. Let's never go back to it. Let's never talk about it again. Let's pretend it doesn't exist.
I like
But
that.
yet we're getting another movie about Rey.
We are somehow. I don't know what they're going to do. She did say, Daisy Ridley said in a podcast I listened to that it is apparently going to be some time has passed, and this is going to be a different kind of Star Wars movie.
I mean, I'm going to watch it.
And they know that. That's just it. This 9th one, all they knew the title was Rise of Skywalker. Everyone's watching.
They're like,
that.
take my money.
Everyone's watching it. There's no chance. They know what they're doing. They're a money making machine. That's all they care about.
And I have tried to watch Rise of Skywalker. I've watched it 3 or 4 times now. hoping that it will get better, and somehow each
gets
one of
worse.
these final 3 films, they get worse.
do. They get worse.
Every time I watch it, I find more things like, how much stupider can you get? And they somehow seem to clear the hurdle every single time.
Well, let's bracket the good things, shall we?
If you want to be the best, you have to beat the rest. This is the Best Things Bracket.
By some miracle, we have positive things to say about Star Wars. We probably have more positives than negatives overall. But for the sake of this bracket, the best things about Star Wars, let's figure that out. First round, number 1, Luke Skywalker versus Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star. And the death of the Death Star. 3, 2, 1, Luke.
And how are we choosing to remember Luke?
I would like to remember him fondly. I choose to omit the new Luke. Like I said, I don't mind how he died. I don't mind that. I think it could have been better, but I don't mind. I don't mind it.
It was definitely an improvement on what they did to him in The Last Jedi. Though.
Right, yeah. Okay, Han Solo versus the birth of Darth Vader, not the literal birth.
His birth. Okay, the birth of Anakin.
Darth Vader becoming Darth Vader. Him going from the transition from Anakin to Vader. 3, 2, 1. Vader.
Han. Is Vader?
I don't know, man. That's a hard.
The beginning of Vader is cool.
It's
but
really just episode 3, right? You know,
Han Solo is such a fun character for the whole franchise.
I got to agree with that. I want to switch mine. It was really close anyway, so I want to go Han Solo. Luke, I Am Your Father versus Order 66. 3, 2.
To be factually correct, though, we need to take the word Luke out.
That's true.
Because it's not Luke.
Yeah.
He just said, I am your father. Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1.
I am your father.
Vader's redemption arc versus lightsaber battles.
Ooh.
3, 2, 1. Lightsaber battles.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm going with, too.
Yeah. They're just too cool. Again, as much as I like the plot points,
Do you remember when the iPhone came out and there was that lightsaber app? It was so cool.
It was so cool. I mean, people are still trying to make real life lightsabers. I mean, that's going to happen one day. I mean, it's kind of happening now, but like it's going to be awesome. Luke versus Han.
Oh.
Who you got? 3, 2, 1.
Han Solo. Yeah.
And mainly because with all the negatives the new ones did, they still kept Han Solo.
Yeah.
Like he was still the same character. They butchered Luke.
Yes.
They made him a shell of who he was.
Yes. I
Am Your Father versus lightsaber battles. 3, 2, 1.
I am your father.
IAYF. That should be a t-shirt. Han Solo versus I Am Your Father. Paper pop. 3.
Desk pop.
3, 2, 1.
Han Solo.
Your father. Wow. I almost went there. And I pulled out at the last second. You're going to have to convince me. Because that was such an iconic moment. Such an iconic line. Involves 2 of the best characters.
It does. But do you want the franchise without Han Solo?
But can you have the franchise without that moment? I guess you can. There's so much buildup around that moment. Like all the prequels, episodes 1 through 3, are centered around that moment.
Yeah. You're right. Let's make it that moment then.
Okay. I Am Your Father wins. Congratulations. Yeehaw! No battle this week, which is good because we went almost 2 hours on this episode. Because Brisket won a championship last time we did this. And so I Am Your Father will be our day one champion now. Moving on to take on next week's winner, which is a good episode, y'all. We know what's coming now. Rarely do we know for sure what the next one is. Oh, we know. And it's going to be a good one. There's like 4 people that are going to hear this ending because we went so long about a topic. We said right off the jump that some people aren't going to listen to it, probably because they're going to look at the timestamp and go, ain't nobody got time for that.
No.
We really don't have time for it, but we just did it anyway. Okay. You got anything else? Anything else feel like you need to rant about? Go watch episodes 1 through 6. Don't worry, it gets better after 1. 6 through 5 or 6. No, sorry, back up. 3 through 6.
Yeah,
fantastic. All right, nothing else.
Nothing else.
All right, for the best things, I am Craig.
I'm Aaron.
We'll talk at you next time. May the force be with you.
Thanks for listening to the Best Things Podcast. If you liked today's episode, subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening now. And remember, connect with us on the socials at Best Things Pod, and you may hear your take on an upcoming episode.